everyone, and welcome to Liquid Liner Notes, a podcast that brings you interviews from the beverage and music industries. I'm your host, Danny, aka Hip Hops on Instagram. Today, I have a friend of mine on the show, a home brewer, music producer, and podcaster, co-host of The Malting Hour, Tony Golick, aka Asa Phelps, aka Mr. Amigo.
Whoa, deep dive.
Welcome to the show. I had to do a little deep dive.
Jeez. Wow. I don't think anybody else knows that, except for people who were around at that time.
Yeah. So we'll get to that in a little bit. Sure. But I really wanted to have you on sort of when I was thinking about doing this. You and I have a lot in common in terms of taste in music. And you sort of do cross the border between music and beer very well, doing your own music, being a music fan, and like I said, not only drinking beer, but you make your own beer and you talk about beer, making beer and drinking beer.
I mean, it doesn't get better than that.
So to start out, we'll start out with the podcasting stuff, and then we'll kind of get into music towards the end. But so you're the co-host of the Malting Hour, started in 2019.
Yeah, right at if I'm not mistaken, 2019 is when we recorded, I think, our very first intro, and maybe right before the first episode, we technically started in 2019. I don't know. I don't have those facts in front of me. No, it is 2019.
It looked like you guys.
We recorded episode 0.
January 11th.
Correct. We recorded episode 0. We call it episode 0 now at the end of 2018.
Oh, so that never got out though, did it?
No, it was eventually released.
Oh, okay.
It's I think we did it in the middle of the first 100 episodes we did.
So it's you and Brandon.
Brandon, my good buddy Brandon from high school.
And you guys, I was just say you guys know each other since high school.
Sorry, I'm jumping the gun there. Sorry.
Decided to, right? Yeah. How did you guys decide you wanted to start a podcast?
Actually, if you listen to the intro, as of this recording, if you listen to the intro of the podcast, it originally was set up to be a homebrew roundtable because we were in a homebrew club. Brandon, myself, my brother-in-law, a couple buddies of ours, we had started a brew club and we got really into it. And we were brewing big batches of beer together. And I started listening to a lot of beer podcasts. And I thought it'd be fun let's do it as a homebrew group. Brandon and I had talked about it, that, he was interested in doing it as well. So he and I started doing it. We were going to have the guys on. And I think the first few episodes, Emil, who was originally in the group, was on, and my brother-in-law made it on much later. It didn't really start coming together as a homebrew podcast as much as it became a beer and homebrew podcast. So from there, Brandon and I decided we were just going to go in the direction of focusing on our separate, our own homebrews, and just beer in general, because we knew a lot of people and still know a lot of people in the beer and brewing industry. Yeah.
And so the homebrewing group, is that something where you kind of pay dues?
Oh man, got my shirt on.
You got a shirt on.
Got 212. We did. Sorry for clearing my throat.
No, you're good.
We do it all the time in the Malting Hour.
Apologize to the audience.
Sorry, everybody. If you listen to our show, you know we're really bad at that. We did. We put money in to buy grains and to brew beers. We bought a jockey box at one point. Don't know who has that. It's probably with Emil now.
And you guys vote on what to make?
Yeah, we just, not so much vote as much as we just discussed. We took it really seriously in the beginning. The first year, it was a lot of fun. We did, I want to say we did 5 or 10 gallons of a barley wine and separated them into 1 gallon batches where we all pitched different yeast and used different hops or ingredients or something else to do something to it. So things like that were really made it exciting to do.
And you guys did end up doing some festivals, I guess you would call them, so homebrew festivals.
We did the Great Lakes Brew Fest in the now RIP, now defunct Great Lakes Brew Fest. No longer exists in Racine, when they were allowed to have brewers from other states come up. That was a lot of fun because Mike, Brandon, and I, Mike's my brother-in-law, Brandon and I would go up there, and it was pretty much like a straightforward beer fest. It's $50. there wasn't any like, there's a couple special tappings, but it was a lot of flagship beers. Mm-hmm. But it was a chance to like hang out by Lake Michigan at the Racine Zoo and just drink a whole bunch of beer with your friends. And then Homebrew Island was something that we really liked because it was a chance to try a whole bunch of new things and then see what other homebrewers were doing. So we got a part of it. We decided once we felt comfortable enough that we wanted to be a part of it. So we participated, and that was a lot of fun. We brought up like a barrel-aged beer, a hazy IPA, a pale ale, and I think that's it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And so, can you talk about the evolution of the malting hour? So you guys started doing that, and then now, as someone who is on it with you guys, so I kind of already know this, but just for the listeners, you guys kind of focus on either like a certain style where you'll grab a couple different beers from different breweries on a certain style, or you'll do a certain brewery and then do several styles from that brewery. Just, I guess, how has that sort of evolved? Have you guys gotten good like feedback on that? And
I think the direction that we've taken it, at least for this year, it's been kind of weird. We've been very busy. So Brandon and I have been doing a lot of recording on our own without you. We are trying to send you a message. You're not welcome. No, it's
sorry,
just,
Clark too.
Who? What it's evolved into, the feedback that we've gotten is that there's more listeners. Like we do have certain fans like of the podcast who've reached out to us. We've had actual breweries reach out to us, and the listeners, like just recently, actually today, I was checking the stats, and for some reason in Brussels we had like a whole bunch of streams just recently. Like a couple days ago, it was over 100. So wow. I'm not sure how that algorithm works and how all of a sudden it's just popping up, but that does regularly happen in different places, different cities, all over the place, that we just have a bunch of streams. So I'm not sure who's doing it and why, but we appreciate it.
Shout out to Brussels. And do you
rock over London, rock over Chicago.
I don't know when this is going to be released. I'm going to try to get a couple under my belt and then get this out. But
this is episode 1. Welcome to Liquid Liner Notes. I'm your host, Tony Golick.
Is there anything that you're like hoping that you get to do this year, or I guess we're coming up on the end of the year now, but like anything you're looking forward to?
Yeah, we have developed a relationship with the Illinois Craft Beer Alliance, at least a couple people there, mainly Raced Out and Matthew Moldenhauer, who's also at Old Irving. So we've been lucky enough to talk about a lot of Illinois craft beer events, namely the Festival of Barrel Aged Beers, which is the largest festival of barrel-aged beers. They're coming up on year 21, so we're actually going to sit down with Ray soon to talk with him about that. And we're also finally getting to talk to Temperance, and we're going to talk to them about their 10-year anniversary. A lot of anniversary stuff.
Yeah.
And then my favorite part of the year is what we do is the Maltese, where we, as in me, you, Brandon, and Clark, who I believe is going to join us on that, we'll talk about what our favorite beers were for the year. And that, to me, is always fun because it's kind of funny just to sit around and talk about like beers that we had and kind of go over the year.
Yeah. It's actually, I was listening to one of the episodes, and you guys mentioned something about possibly being on the Maltese, and I was like, I don't even know. Right now, I have no clue. I'd have to like really sit down and think about it because I haven't been keeping track as much.
Come on, Dan.
And I haven't been drinking as much either, truthfully.
I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
But we're going to need you to have a list.
And so the Malting Hour can be found pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
The podcast can be found.
Yeah, literally. Well, we have the website, maltinghour.com, which is riddled with ads. It's fantastic. I love going to our own website, but that's how we get a little bit of revenue that way. But yeah, you can find it on Spotify, Pandora. Oh, I go Spotify first.
Pandora.
I chose the two worst examples. You can find it on Apple. You can find it on Google Podcasts. That's what I use.
Apple Music?
Yeah.
Oh, never mind.
Apple Podcasts.
Yeah, Apple Podcasts.
Come on, man. Yeah, we're not Stitcher. We're not. I think Stitcher is now. done. I don't know. I think Stitcher's done, but regardless, we're even on iHeartRadio, the iHeartRadio app. You can find us on there.
I didn't know they had podcasts. iHeartRadio. My one of my coworkers listens to a gospel iHeartRadio station that I can hear every day.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Get the word of the Lord in every day for you. That's
every
nice.
day. So just moving on from the malting hour.
Let's get away from it. That's such a. But everybody really should go check out the malting hour podcast.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like
some sweet merch.
Number
too.
one.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to lead off before everyone gets sick of hearing you and drops off.
Yeah, this is what you're about to segue into. Everyone's gonna be like, we don't really care.
No, I was just continue your proliferation in podcasting.
Oh, you're using one of those another word to add to my vocabulary for the malting hour. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And
by the way, this beer we're drinking is not very aqueous.
No, it's not. No, it's not very aqueous. But yeah, let's actually, before we jump into
Sure.
that. So another reason I wanted to have you over is because I've held on to this beer. You are a big fan of Run the Jewels.
Avid.
And I had this Run the Jewels beer, Goonies versus E.T. from Horace Brewing out, I think in Oceanside, California. And I should have looked at this before.
Oh, it's like you're on the malting hour again.
Yeah. Clark, where is it? No, Oceanside. So they're out in California, and I held on to it because I was like, if anyone's going to appreciate this, just for the aspect of it being Run the Jewels, it's going to be Tony.
And the label itself, they used for a poster for that tour.
Oh, yeah, they got them in like old school boxing gear. I guess it's not necessarily old school.
I mean, yeah, but I think that's the feel of it at least.
Yeah. And so, yeah, like I said, Goonies versus E.T., 6.2%. It is a green chartreuse barrel-aged Belgian-style sour ale aged on lime zest.
Very tasty.
Yeah, it's very super citrus forward. It's not difficult to drink at all. It kind of drinks like a, I don't know, slightly sour tart juice or something.
Yeah, with like a little bit of the pith bit. There's like a pith bitterness in the back of my tongue while I'm drinking this, but it also that has faded a bit. It's not as strong as I've been drinking it. I've been drinking it more while we're talking.
Yeah, it's I don't know if it's the age, 'cause I've had it for, I think it's a couple or a few years old, but or just because it was in a barrel, but it's not super carbonated, which helps it go down even faster.
Yeah, smooth.
So there's been a lot of Run the Jewels.
There has been.
Beverages.
Yes.
Beers.
Correct.
Waters. Whatever.
Yeah, you name it. Marijuana. The weed.
What is, just what we're talking about, what would you say your favorite Run the Jewels album is?
Oh boy.
And why is it number one? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, at the time of this recording, I'm actually going to see them this week because they're coming to Chicago for their 10-year anniversary of Run the Jewels 1. But
the Salt Shed?
Yeah.
Nice.
And so they're playing 4 nights where they're going to do each album all the way through plus other songs. So I only got tickets for night number 2. Run the Jewels 2 is probably my favorite. Much like sequels that are fantastic, I felt that Run the Jewels 2 was like, I don't know. There's a lot to that album. Like the original Run the Jewels album, I don't know if you know the history behind it. A lot of those beats that are on there were going to be either LP beats or beats that didn't end up making Killer Mike's rap music that LP produced. So they just threw it all together and made that. It was just kind of a, here we go, we're going to do it. And it just kind of gained some ground there. So when the second one came out, I remember the first track or a little snippet that I heard on Instagram was a snippet from, can you swear on this podcast? Can I swear on this podcast?
I guess
I'm not going to be dropping a lot, but it's just
I think it'll be yeah, you can.
it's just, it's the big one. Ready?
Oh, no.
It was a sample of Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck with Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine. And I remember hearing that and being like, holy cow, that's insane. And just hearing that for the first time, the repetitive way that they used his vocals to repeat, Run the Jewels fast, and then go into the beat, I knew that album was going to be killer. And sure enough, like, I know every lyric on that album like the back of my hand.
I didn't even know that was 2. For some reason, I was thinking that was 1. Huh.
1 has, I know, Big Boy's on there. I don't think there's anybody else that featured on Run the Jewels one. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Until the Ribbon Breaks.
Yeah. Until the Ribbon Breaks. I forgot all three of those are on there. Until the Ribbon Breaks, their first album's really good.
Yeah,
it's nothing like Run the Jewels.
Nothing like Run the Jewels. I actually have not listened, so I'll have to check it out. Yeah, no, I was gonna say that I think 2 is probably my favorite too. Just looking, Blockbuster Night.
Yeah, Jeopardy.
Yeah, the Close Your Eyes. That might actually be the first time I heard of him, because I knew Killer Mike from he had like that song Reagan on one of his albums.
And that was the rap music.
Was it rap music? And then LP I knew just because he did a lot of stuff with I don't even remember what the group was called back then.
Company Flow,
but then wasn't he like part of like Demigods or something? I forget. He like hung out with. I feel like he hung out with some of those.
Well, he ran Def Jux,
obscure Def Jux guys.
Yeah, so that's what it is. All those guys, like he and A$AP Rock did a lot of stuff together for a long time.
Yeah, that Def Jux. I went through a little like phase where I was like diving deep into like Mr. Lif and A$AP Rock and all that stuff.
I love Mr. Lif.
But I heard that Zach De La Rocha was going to be on something, and I was like, wait a second, this dude's been in like hiding forever. Like, what's going on? And that's what really like sparked my interest with it.
They've called him the honorary 3rd member because ever since the second album, he's been on like 3 and 4. So,
there you go.
3 out of 4 ain't bad, baby.
And speaking of proliferation, the Run the Jewels has been doing a lot of collabs with breweries. And I know they've done here in Chicago, they've done Goose Island, I think.
Yes, that was the first one they did. And if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be available this week. I don't know if at Fulton or Clybourne, or if it's just going to be at the show, but I'm almost positive that it's going to be available. But yeah, that was the first collaboration they did. I think it was a Golden Nail.
Yeah, I think that sounds right. And then the Pipeworks one, I know they had a pop-up in headquarters. What's that? Emporium?
Logan Arcade? Emporium?
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it was probably Emporium.
I think it was Emporium. Just north of Rev on Milwaukee there.
They had 2. I know they did 2 with them. One for Run the Jewels 3. They did a Stay Gold. And then another one they did with them, which was No Save Point, which is the song they did for the video game Cyberpunk 2077 soundtrack.
Never even heard of it.
You chose the right guy to talk about Run the Jewels.
Avid gamer also. I forgot to mention that.
I like games. I wouldn't say I'm avid. My cousin Kevin, he's avid.
Speaking of Kevin, here's a nice little segue.
Oh,
Kevin Goggin.
Yeah.
Cousin. And co-host of Teen Line. Yeah. And we can just talk about this briefly, but
TINE, by the way.
Not to be confused with TEEN.
Yeah.
But it was a quarantine podcast, and the line was the Lifeline. I might have just went and listened back to the first episode just today.
I remember you telling me when you listened to it, you burned through the entire season.
All 8 episodes.
Yeah, that was a lot.
And so that was your second podcast. You were kind of doing 2 at once.
Yeah, because it was during 2020 COVID and everybody being locked down. So it was. My cousin Kevin and I had talked about wanting to do something, but we only wanted to do something that like we really wanted, like that made sense. Made sense. Like he would never do a like Simpsons podcast because there's probably like 50 Simpsons podcasts. He would definitely not do a beer podcast because there's a million beer podcasts. So we were trying to figure out something to do. Because he and I were doing like Zoom stuff all the time during the pandemic. And I said we both agreed on that we wanted to do something positive, like put something positive out there. So that's what we ended up doing. We decided to have this idea, or we decided to, bring something to each other's attention that's like, here's something I really like, here's something I really like. Like we started, I think, with movies?
Music.
So there was an album or a song that I really liked. There was an album song he really liked. We listened to each other's suggestion, then came back to discuss it. So each week we did something different.
Yeah, it was a cool concept. And I mean, you should go back and listen to it. It's not like it's stuck in 2020 or anything like that. So you can kind of listen to it. But the concept of each of you bring in an album and giving each other's thoughts, or a movie, or a certain TV episode, or a certain beer. I mean, you guys had a couple different ones. I'm blanking on what the other ones were right now.
Video game.
Yeah, video game. Featuring Brandon Winninger.
Yeah, I don't remember what video games we've all played. That one I don't really remember. Forget. Wow, the video game one. Sorry, Brandon.
Yeah, I forget. So that was a fun little thing.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it, and I told him I'm going to start pushing to do something else like that, but we'll see if he's down for it. I don't know if he will be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if there's anything else like that.
He's busy with his band right now.
Oh, his band?
Yes, Cel Ray.
Oh,
they're from Chicago. Everybody, check them out. CEL space Ray, RAY. You can find them on Bandcamp and Spotify. There's my little plug for my cousin.
They don't do the theme music for Malting Hour, but
no, my buddy Mike, who is in a group with his buddy LSD.
Oh yeah, that's right.
ELLISD.
Yeah,
they did the theme song, or Mike did the theme song for the Malting Hour. Kevin and his wife did the theme song for After the Final Pour, which is the.
Yeah. How's that go? I'm just kidding.
I'll sing it. Brandon and I actually, I think, came up with the. Yeah, Brandon and I came up with the actual melody for that. And I think we sang it with Kevin, and then Kevin came up with the actual recording, and he and his wife sang it.
Oh, that's cool. So you guys are like songwriters.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, when I Googled you, you have an IMDb.
Yeah, I know.
For the Malting Hour, and it even talks about.
We don't need to talk about that. So. We don't need to talk about that at all. I'm trying to find a way to get that scrubbed because I want nothing to do with what that originally was.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, maybe talk off mic.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how to get it scrubbed. Somebody help me.
Somebody contact IMDb.
That's hilarious.
So we'll switch over to music production.
Okay.
So
let's do it.
I think it's cool because I like a lot of music. I've never learned to play an instrument.
Same here.
Sampling anything just seems like beyond me. And you have quite a bit of stuff out on Bandcamp, and you could probably find it elsewhere.
No, it's pretty much Bandcamp. Sample, I don't want to go. I like doing it, but I also don't really want to deal with like clearing samples or paying for a whole bunch of stuff. It's got to the point where it's like I really like to do it for fun, for myself.
Yeah, and so everything, as a result, everything is free on Bandcamp.
Yeah, or you can pay for it.
Yeah.
Out of the years that I've had Bandcamp, I've made $23.
Oh, you know that off the top of your head?
I saw it recently. Gearing up for the new release.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Speaking of which, Theme 4.
Theme 4. Finally
Theme 4.
Yeah, I'm working on it all year, actually.
We'll get into the theme stuff later. I'm gonna start back
in the beginning.
When do you think you started making music? Like 2009?
1998.
1998. Really?
No joke.
Oh, I thought you were joking.
No, 1998. I'm 41 years old, by the way, everybody.
Bandcamp doesn't go that far.
It does not.
No.
I have actual CDs of music I've made. And if we want to go like further back, probably the first thing that I did musically, which I do have a recording of somewhere, is like 1995 or 6. I was in a punk band with my cousin Kevin, my buddy John, our friend Kenny, and we did that for a few years. And then
what was the name?
The Eddie Haskells.
The Eddie Haskells?
Do you know Eddie Haskell is?
No.
From Leave It to Beaver. He was like the shithead kid in the block, so it was like hilarious. We play punk. We're gonna be Eddie Haskell. That was a lot of fun. I was a singer of that with Kevin and John. They all played instruments. I did not. Kevin and I, we ended up doing kind of a joke album. We called it Sanctuary with a K because there's already a metal band called Sanctuary. And we had his 4-track recorder and I think 2 Casio keyboards. And we basically made like, kind of made fun of like bands like Nine Inch Nails and Marilyn Manson. Very like industrial, like, and not, I chose them specifically because there was a couple like references that like, and I was listening, I'm still a fan of Nine Inch Nails. Like I'm an avid listener and fan of Nine Inch Nails, but we wanted to do something that was kind of jokey, but also be able to perform it live because we had a whole bunch of other friends who were like in different types of bands. We had a friend who was running a record label called the Magic Spot Productions, and his name is Rich, and you would know the other person who was a part of that. His name's Jesse. He now lives in Tennessee. If you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
Valenciana.
He was a part of that as well. That's how I know Jesse. I know Jesse all the way back.
I thought you met him through beer. Cooking.
No, we reconnected through beer. Oh. So yeah, so like we did all that, and then the punk band broke up, and in '98, a sophomore in high school, my buddy Dan introduced me to this program called Mixman, and Mixman was basically you could take like loops. And you could put samples in there too, but it was like preset loops that you could put in together, mix up, throw effects on and everything. And it was like having 2 turntables that were like basically samples. If I'm not mistaken, there's like 5 or 6 samples per turntable. So that was like my first experience of like using samples and looping, and being able to experiment with more the computer side of making music.
So from punk music, like being in a punk band, to like when you started producing music or whatever you want to call it.
Our feet just touched on the table. I want everyone to know that.
Sorry, there aren't visuals. So did you like start getting into hip hop then, or?
Yeah, it was. I had always listened to, here in Chicago, there was B96 forever. I always played pop, hip hop, and R&B, and then Q101 came around, and that was playing alternative rock. So I had like this transition phase, and also my sister, when I was growing up, listened to everything. So like, she had Eazy-E and Nine Inch Nails and Screeching Weasel and The Cure. So there's like just a wide, not a wide array, but like very eclectic collection of music. So I'd always listen to a whole bunch of stuff. So even during the listening to a whole bunch of punk, I started then getting into hip hop because I saw a lot of similarities in what the messages and stories were in the music. So yeah, I started getting into hip hop. But what really kind of set my sights like on wanting to specifically do something in hip hop with music production, my buddy Dan introduced me to 2 albums at the same time. We were in school together. He had just transferred from another school. He and I became friends right away, and he let me borrow 2 CDs on some trip that I took. And the first one was Daft Punk's Homework. Mm-hmm. The other one was DJ Shadow's Preemptive Strike. So those 2 albums really set me in the direction of like wanting to make music without a band, like being my own band and learning how to sample. And I didn't have, I always grew up with like having this big Casio keyboard in my house, and I'd always play it, but I never learned how to play piano. Yeah. And even now, like, I can tell you some chords of what I'm playing, but everything has always been by ear and what I wanted to hear, and just sitting there and messing around with stuff forever.
Yeah, so you're not like trained or gone to school for it. You kind of just self-taught.
Yeah,
like, and like curiosity on that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Dan introduced me to that, so Mixman, and then, by the way, at that time, I had to have my own name. So my name was DJ Casio.
DJ Casio.
So see, I took the Casio keyboard name. I thought, how clever. I love Casio keyboards. And I'm not a DJ. I'm not DJing, but I had those, on the screen, Mixman, the 2 turntables.
Yeah, you were digitally DJing.
Yeah, I guess. That's what you want to say. But and so from there, I started messing around with some other programs where I could do tracking, like how we record now. How the program is called Acid. It's now owned by Sony. Used to just be Sonic Foundry Acid. It's how I mix down the podcast as well. Oh. So I'm very familiar with how to do all that. I've done a lot of stuff with Acid, but that is where I would piece together everything. I would chop up waves and put drum loops in there and mess around with different things. And I really wish I had a whole bunch of old hard drives with older stuff. It'd be funny to hear like progression. I do have recordings of old things, but they're just on CD.
So where do you even find samples? Like, do you just like hear something and you're like, oh, I'd like to use that 5-second loop?
because of knowing where like original sampling came from records, that was the first thing I thought to do. Like, okay. And I always had a record player, so I would just go buy random records. I thought, what a great idea. I'll go to a thrift store where you can get random stuff and put it on and just kind of jump around through songs or whatever and comedy stuff. And that's what I did. And then I was like, how about this idea? I'm going to sample stuff from movies. What a great idea. It's not like, industrial and techno music hasn't already been doing that for years, but, that's the same thing. So I would either hook in a VCR into my mixer that I had like a turntable set up to that would go into the computer, or I would find a way to record it, and then transfer the actual recording to the computer.
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
It's fun.
And then, so I heard before we started recording, I think you were talking about Fruity Loops, which I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
But do you use that now?
Still do it, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you were using before.
Oh, yeah. So it was more acid, and then I started using Fruity Loops, but I didn't. So Fruity Loops, you can basically set up like a sequencer, a sampler. It's a DAW. So there's all these plugins and different and instruments that you can use. And really, in the last 10 years is when I really finally started to realize, there's so much more I can do with it.
Yeah.
I finally got myself a MIDI keyboard the other 2 years ago to mess around with, which has made it way more fun because I normally just use the actual I wanted to say typewriter keyboard on my the typewriter on my computer, the keyboard, to hit notes. So I was always playing it just with the letters. So I was not doing myself any service of trying to learn how to play music better by just, if I hit G, it's not the note G. I don't know what the fuck it is. It could be C minor for all I know. But now I have an actual MIDI keyboard, and that's Fruity Loops is awesome. There's so many plugins and so much to do with it. Like it's great.
Yeah, I see a lot of, especially like instrumental hip hop producers, they'll release like a drum kit or whatever, and that kind of thing, which I'm assuming is what goes into.
Yeah, it's cool because you can separate out sounds, make your own loops, put loops in there. So many different effects. I mean, you have like this wider range of like a mixing board. Do you remember when we did the Malting Hour episode where we called Serge, or Serge called us, Clark's character? I ran that through.
Wait, that was Clark?
Oh no, cat's out of the bag. I ran that through Fruity Loops and put an EQ effect that was either radio or telephone, and then adjusted and just had it run through that. So then I could just go back and forth in Acid so that we were talking to him and he was on the phone.
That's funny. Yeah. I had no idea. I mean, I didn't even like try to think.
Didn't really think about it. I mean, it's not a deep thought, but that's where my brain goes. How do I make it sound like this?
Brilliant. And you sort of got involved, or based on my internet snooping, you got involved in like a gang. No,
oh no,
like a musical. I don't know what you would call it. Like, it wasn't like you guys were actually in a group, but you guys were like a cohort where you guys were kind of like working together.
Which one is this?
Well, you were getting released. It was with Mr. Amigo. You were getting released as part of a compilation. It was something Volume 1. I'm blanking on what it is right now. But I think it was the Fluid. Was it with Fluid Mind guys?
Could have been. I was with the. I did some work with Fluid Mind guys because there was a short time in my. I'm gonna go through the whole history. Here we go. There was a short time in my 20s when
Vitamins for the Soul.
Sorry. Oh, okay. So
that's what I saw.
Yeah. Well, that was a compilation I put together because I wanted to have a record label because I grew up with all these guys who did punk record labels. So then I got involved with these guys who were making hip hop. I'm like, why don't we do this? And we called it Indigenous Records. Not the greatest name these days.
No.
Probably not a good move. But we did just have the N. We were trying to be. Yeah. We wanted to make it seem like, look, we're
white.
Not all of us were right, by the way. A lot of us were. But looking back, yeah, not a smart move. So I was making beats, and all these other guys who were like a year or two older than me, and then another guy who I met through doing improv at Columbia College. All these guys, I was the one making beats, and they were all rapping. So I became the guy that like we would do stuff together. And like one point, I had this apartment with one of the rappers, and we had basically like this. We called it the dungeon because we had the basement apartment, and through my room you could go into this other larger basement part. Not large, but it was underneath the outside like porch, and it was like painted blue. Like we did graffiti on it and everything, and that became our studio, and that's where we would record it. And we recorded that whole compilation there. Mm-hmm. That was fun.
And then you kind of moved. I noticed like on Bandcamp that you moved to doing a lot of remixes.
I did that. I did a lot of that. Those things on Bandcamp were mainly just like side things that I did a little bit later once the whole Indigenous record thing ended. Because after that, me, my buddy Chris, my buddy Mikkel, and my buddy Paul, who played stand-up bass and electric bass, who I was in another band with at one point. We were mainly a cover band. We formed this group called Altered Status. And that was a lot of fun, too, because I was doing all the beats. Paul and I were also, collaborating on that stuff because I was the drummer in the other band.
I was going to say, I thought you learned how to play drums, but you were telling me you don't have any...
No training. I learned how to play the drums by listening to Possum Kingdom by the Toadies. Oh. And that's how I learned how to play drums. But it's also great to have an awesome bassist who also has great rhythm, and then you guys connect, and all of a sudden you're able to just play off of him, and he's playing off of you. And so that's how we ended up going into this Altered Status group with my buddy Mikkel and Chris. And so that we did for a while. We played some shows. That was a lot of fun. I think we played Reggie's. So that was a lot of fun here in Chicago.
What did this sound like? Is it like Linkin Park-esque? I'm like trying to think of like a DJ in a band.
No, it's I made the beats, and then there was other things I would perform live, like simple things. But and I played drums a couple times too, because we would do that, and Paul would do the stand-up bass or the electric bass, while Mikkel and Chris rhymed over everything.
So they were rapping. Yeah. Okay, when you were saying band, I didn't know.
Oh no, yeah. No. Paul and I were in a separate band, and then we kind of shifted over to this. So once that ended, that's when I started doing a bunch of stuff on my own. When I met up with the guys with Fluid Minds while I was living in the house where the band was. We were all together. The band was called Magic Murder Bag, by the way. It's really
Magic Murder Bag.
It's a Venture Brothers reference. If you have ever watched the cartoon Venture Brothers, you would know. Clearly, you don't know that.
Don't know.
Hilarious show. But yeah, so I met the guys from during that time. Nine Inch Nails was releasing a lot of their albums with like an extra disc that had like all the stems, so all the individual tracks, so you can remix it. And they had a website, which I think still might be active. You can download other people's remixes.
So they were like encouraging people,
yeah, to remix their stuff. So I was doing that for a little bit, and that's how I got hooked up with the guys from Fluid Minds, because they were Fluid Minds was practicing in our basement through this big basement where our upstairs neighbors did not care. Well, the husband did, but the wife was always like, don't bother them. They're just having a good time, which was super cool.
What neighborhood was this in, like Jeff Park area? Or what?
No, this is in Avondale.
Okay.
That's not too far. It was like closer to Addison and Kedzie, right by Revolution.
Oh.
Like I lived right over there for a while. So that was cool. And when I met with them, I was doing a remix of a Nine Inch Nails song, and the lead singer, John, was like, man, it's cool. I'm working with this other rapper who is who ended up becoming a good friend of mine. He went by the name of Notebook Noise, and I remixed some of his stuff, and then we did an album together. And it was great because John was like he's using Pro Tools, and like he did all the Fluid Mind albums. He's now, if you look him up, Johnny Cosmic, he's on tour. He plays a lot of like reggae stuff. It's really cool. I'm happy like he went from where we were in the basement to now just touring all over the place. So that's where that kind of came from, because from there I was like, well, if these guys like my remixes, I'm going to start remixing stuff. Plus remixing other people's music is a lot of fun, because you get a chance to take something maybe that you know or really like and put your own spin on it. And also, I felt helped me grow as a musician and a producer to like get out of me and my comfort zone to like, so this is already set in place. I'm not just making something up. Mm-hmm. Like I have to follow something. I have something to follow. It's not just me. Like, let's try this and see where this, if it sticks to the wall, great. I mean, you're still doing that.
Yeah.
There's still already like an element in place. Like I have to do this. I have to follow this at least.
Yeah. Cause I mean, I have I'm a huge fan of music, but I don't have any like training either. So, I mean, I know obviously you have like hook, chorus, verse, all that kind of stuff.
Intro, outro.
So you would listen to the original when you're doing these remixes? You listen to the original, even if it was like the Fluid Mind guys, like not even like Nine Inch Nails. So you're listening to the original and you're kind of like, you go from there, or do you have something that you maybe already exists and you just like kind of tweak it to go with it?
I never had anything that already existed. I just never, and not by choice. It just never like presented itself like, oh wow, I have something that would work great with this.
Yeah.
It was always an approach of how can I put a different spin on this? And there was like some remixes that hit and some that like missed, and I was lucky enough to be featured on the Fluid Minds remix album, where John did some extra production on some of those songs. So that was a lot of fun to hear that stuff. And he produced one of my albums with the guys who were all part of the same like group they called Mother Brain, which is a Metroid reference, the Nintendo game. Are you familiar with Metroid?
I've heard of it.
Boy, I feel like I'm back in the multi-hour. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun to do all that. So in that, working with John and learning how he mixed things, how he told me things, and just I really paid attention to what he was doing with the Fluid Mind stuff and all the other guys that we were working with, Notebook Noise. That when that chapter kind of came to a close, I went and did an album on my own that I felt like I really found like a nice like the beginning of like fine tuning things, like realizing like, oh, you really need to like adjust levels and like work on different things instead of just being like, I record it, sounds good, and like that's it. I didn't master it, I didn't mix it or anything. That's how a lot of the stuff that I used to do. I mean, when I listen to like old things on CDs, I'm like, damn it, I really wish I knew. Like, I should have mastered this. I should have adjusted this because it sounds really good, except that one fucking synth or note or something or guitar or whatever loop is just too loud or too quiet or just a terrible sample. Yeah. So being able to like learn from that, like all those years to like now where I can finally, like when I sit down with something as I'm recording, I'll go through it and I'll sit with it for like at least a week. Normally it's like a song I'll sit with, go back to it and listen to it again and start adjusting things or add things or tweak things to the point where like there's certain songs that I've worked on for like more than a month, which as it being like a hobby, that's a long time for me.
Yeah.
I was not sitting there like, hours and hours and hours. I know that like real professional musicians or other musicians are spending way more time and way more effort on a song. But for me, I'm just like, I can't believe I've gotten to this point now where I'm like, I'm sitting there with this one song, just trying to find the one thing that like, what is not working?
Feel like it's missing something.
Yeah.
You feel
how do I make this come to be?
I was actually going to ask, like, what's one thing from your music production wise that you know now you wish you would have known in the beginning, but you kind of maybe just answered it unless there's something else you can think of.
Taking the time to mix, master, and revisit, and not thinking that like, oh, I got it, it's done. I've already got this recorded. This is what it sounds like. I like the way it sounds, just like this.
It just is what it is.
That is what it is.
Yeah. And do you have like, I like I've looking into stuff. I mean, music production. Like people are like, oh yeah, like you don't necessarily want to have like the greatest headphones when you're doing it because like people are
absolutely
listening and whatever.
Even now, while I'm doing the new stuff that I'm doing now, or I've been doing for the last few years, I'll do it in the headphones, like record, mix, do everything in the headphones. Then I'll go and listen in my wife's Dodge van, which has really great, like really good speakers. Like it sounds fantastic. I know it sounds crazy that it's a Dodge Caravan, but like I really feel like it has like a nice speakers and a different way of listening to the song. Then I'll listen to it at work on computers, like my little like Bluetooth speaker, to hear what I'm hearing there. That's a really good way for me to find out if a bass or kick or some type of synth is too high, because it will rattle like the actual, where I'm like, okay, gotta cut that. And then through my phone speakers. So there's like the different phases of ways I like to try and listen to these songs before I'm like finally done with them.
And you kind of do that with all of your tracks. And the projects you've been working on, you've kind of been referencing for the last few years, are the theme projects. And this, to me, from outsider looking in, I would describe it as like a ethereal, like horror sound soundtrack, kind of like experimental. I'm trying to like use all the like think of all the words.
Come on, get all those words out. Get all those descriptors. No, you're right. It started from
ambient.
Yeah, there we go. It started from I love movies and I love horror movies. I love sci-fi movies. I mean, I love other movies too, but like if there's nothing like I watched last night Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight from the 90s, which is such a for me. I really like it. It's not great. It's like a very long Tales from the Crypt episode.
Oh, I was gonna say, because I remember when I was a kid that like they would have those episodes, and you'd have the skeleton dude.
Yeah,
yeah. I never really watched them.
Oh no, it was great. It's fantastic. I grew up like my dad raised me on horror movies. Like that's like we would watch like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Exorcist, Halloween, all those movies. But he would always like make fun of it. Like in the sense of like, what are you doing? Like, why are you running through the woods?
Yeah.
And it made it not. I got the point of it, but it was not like scary. It was more like, oh, that's funny, but like, wow, this is crazy. There's this like supernatural thing or like slasher or whatever. DCFS probably should have been called at some point. But my love of that, and like I said, like sci-fi movies, I've always, even when I was doing like punk music and other stuff, I thought it'd be really cool to like score a movie. Like it'd be so much fun to like sit there and because my love of music, my love of movies, like those two things go hand in hand so much. I mean, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Like, you know, John Williams scoring Star Wars. You know, when you hear that, you know, the iconic, you know,
dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, exactly, right. All of it. Like all of John Williams stuff like is in my head. And just hearing other things like other composers like John Carpenter was great because John Carpenter scored a lot of his movies.
Yeah.
And like he wrote the Halloween theme. You know what I mean? And it's so simple, but it like really like it's unsettling.
Sets the mood.
It's super unsettling the first time you hear it. So I really wanted to do something like that, and it started doing it during the pandemic because there was again nothing going on. Going to work, coming home. That was it. So I thought
essential worker. This guy.
I was an essential. Thank you. I was trying to remember what that phrase was, and I couldn't remember for the longest time. It's essential worker. I couldn't. I wanted to make. Originally, what I wanted to do was take one idea. I had this story in my head, and I don't really have a story, but like ideas. It almost was like it was inspired by, like watching a lot of Stranger Things. I was like, that would be really cool. What if there was like this 80s, like, you know, there's all these like this 80s like sci-fi horror type show or movie. So what I thought would be a cool idea was to, and I was doing it mainly for myself because it was, like I said, something I've always wanted to do. So I thought that it would be great if I just, you know, start at the beginning, like what would sound cool as like a trailer or a trailer for, you know, like if you're back in the 80s or even the 90s, like when like a horror movie would you were going to see the trailer for it, it would be like this weird, ominous, creepy ambient music playing. And I kind of started there and then just started building. And so the very first one, I got through it and I was like, man, that was a lot of fun. I started it in like April of 2020, like after everything went into shutdown. So I started doing it just little by little. And then I love Halloween, the actual holiday.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to release it. I'm putting up air quotes. Release it the Friday before Halloween because I thought that would be awesome.
Yeah. And so I did realize that the first track was trailer. And I, for some reason, didn't even put two and two together. It was like each one's like an individual movie like that.
Yeah.
But you definitely get sort of like that Stranger Things. I mean, it's not like as synth heavy with some of the stuff.
Just wait for number 4.
Oh boy. But
I did lean into that a little bit more.
Okay, yeah, I know. I mean, that's cool. I mean, I think that like 80s synth sounds really good, and that's I don't know what the Friday before Halloween is this year. Halloween's a Tuesday.
27th. October 27th. So yeah, I've got a little under a month to finish this up. And I feel like I've gotten there. Now this one's the one that I'm doing now is the longest one as far as tracks numbers go. But I just like what this one is, there's definitely not a story. But there is intentional thought behind each track. So it's almost like with the exception of trailer and credits, those two, the first and last track, the rest of the songs could easily be an actual theme of, like, if you have credits or something, or a theme that plays through a certain part of a movie, like Laurie's theme in Halloween. Laurie's got her own song. I can't keep doing it.
Go on.
Keep going. But each track basically could be that. So there's no...
So do you think that your first three tell a story then? Like
in my head it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which it reminds me of Madlib has his... I'm blanking on what he calls it right now, but he has like a bunch of instrumental projects he released, but he has like music for movies or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
But that was based on a actual like movie he had in his head. So it was like the same kind of concept. It wasn't like Halloween-y or anything like that.
Sure.
But I'm trying to figure out exactly what it's called. And of course it's Volume 2. I own Volume 2 Movie Scenes, the sequel.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this before.
The Beat Conductor, that was the series.
Oh,
That's
nice.
what I was trying to think of.
I'll listen to those.
But no, that's pretty cool that you've like put that much thought into it. And although like you said, this next one, October 27th, look out for it. Bandcamp.
Be there. Be square.
So it doesn't have like a exact story with it, but
No.
that you're putting that much thought into piecing it together.
No, and this one I probably spent more time focusing on trying different things. I would say the first one was like more trying to find my footing of what I was trying to do. Mm-hmm. With it kind of being like a messy, like low budget horror movie.
So it was Run the Jewels 1.
Pretty much. Number two is probably my favorite. I'm not joking. Number 2 is where where I finally like, okay, I really liked what number 1 did. Let's do it better. Like number 2 told, I feel like, a better story.
Found your sweet spot.
I did. And if I'm not mistaken, I think 2 is the shortest because I wanted to do it, but I didn't give myself enough time. But the time that I spent on the songs that I liked, I felt were really good. Mm-hmm. Number 3, last year's, it's funny because that last year is when I started getting a little bit more into but emulate more of like a John Carpenter sound. Because also the Halloween Ends was coming out. I actually have a track on theme 3 that is a specific response to how much I hated Halloween Ends. I felt that Halloween Ends is complete garbage. It's the worst movie ever made.
I have not.
That I have made a specific, like I composed a specific song, like this would have been like what I had in my mind almost to have it come to an end. So number 4, like I said, are separate themes, but it also, I get into a little bit more of maybe what a modern take would be on scoring while still referencing a lot of maybe 80s and 90s stuff.
I was going to say a modern take as in Stranger Things right now, but is an odd nod to that? I'm just trying, because you're talking about a lot of synths.
Kind of, but also like there's this plugin that I use where I basically can generate like a full orchestra, and you probably wouldn't. It just sounds like maybe a oversaturated with effects like orchestra, but it doesn't sound fake. It sounds like real orchestra, which I'm pretty sure that's what they did with this particular plugin. So I messed with that a little bit, but also add effects, so it sounds like it doesn't sound like it's any time period. It seems like it could be in like a horror movie now type of deal. Because also I was talking about 9 Inch Nails, and I'm still a big fan of like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, and they recently, for the last like 10 years now, I think, scoring movies and winning fucking Oscars with it.
Yeah.
That a lot of that stuff, I started drawing some inspiration of like, how would that be if I had the opportunity to do something like that, like take a page from their notebook without like, not ripping it off, but like being inspired, like, well, what could I do with that and how would I approach it?
Yeah. I mean, I like listening to you talk over this time. It's like you have a lot of people who inspire you or people you look up to. But would you say, I was going to ask who you thought your number 1 would be, but do you think it's I'll let you answer.
That's tough. This isn't the rapid fire round, is it?
No. It seems like you have like, I was gonna say. So it's like your sound has evolved over time.
Yeah.
And now you're you've always been into the horror movies, but you're like into this. Like your time is spent into this horror, like the Halloween industrial synthy horror soundtrack, and so that reminds me more of Trent Reznor for sure. But you were also flipping some Trent Reznor stuff and doing the remixes in like 2011, and maybe had DJ Shadow as a more of a inspiration early on. And
if I could, it's split. It's split between the two, really. Like, and mainly because I don't think as far as making music, would be doing what I'm doing now if it wasn't for either one of them. Like, I've been trying to there was this whole, right before, let me start 3 sentences and not finish it. Before we bought our house in 2017, I had like this grand plan of all the guys that I did music with for years. I was going to put together like this 17-track album that was almost going to play out like a story in the sense of like there was going to be, I'm not sure what the theme of it was going to be, but like I had an intro and then I had like a break in the middle of the album, and then Act 2 was going to start, and then there would be like the Act 3 finale. So I had sent beats, like, and this was when I had like really honed in on making beats, like hip hop stuff, and I was like, man, these samples, everything, this is some of my best shit. But we had drifted apart and started doing different things that like people were like, yeah, we'll do it. Like, do you have a way to record vocals? Because I'm living in a small condo with my wife and my daughter, and like, no, I don't have a way to record vocals. And so nothing ever came of it. Like, I literally have like basically a full album of instrumentals that I still haven't done anything with. There's a friend of mine, Big Mike, he releases, I think, an album just about every year. He has used a couple of those beats because I wanted him to be on it. But there's still that, even though I'm doing the theme stuff, I just recently, like, beginning this year too, my big plan was, I'm going to do 2 albums. I'm going to do Themed 4, and I'm going to do a new, like, just regular Ace of Phelps hip-hop thing. So I do have some stuff that I started, and I haven't gone back to it since the summer, so I don't even know what it sounds like.
And so the theme stuff still is under Ace of Phelps?
Yeah.
Okay. And Ace of Phelps is a Simpsons reference that I don't
get.
I don't watch the Simpsons.
He was the last flying hellfish to die that left the treasure from the what they captured from World War II to be decided to, like, either Montgomery Burns or Abe Simpson was going to get it.
Of course.
And the whole episode plays out where Mr. Burns is trying to kill Abe Simpson.
Yeah. As
one
good.
does. It's a good episode.
I'll ask my buddy's like a huge Simpsons guy, so I'll definitely have to ask him about it. So is there anything else that you want to talk about, or you want me to? Is there something you wish I would have asked you about?
No. Food preferences. Like, if there was one thing I could eat for the rest of my life, what would it be? It's pizza. Actually, it's a toss-up between pizza and, like, sandwiches.
Okay.
Sandwiches are great. Now, when I say, like, one thing for the rest of your life, like, it doesn't have to just be a cheese pizza. It doesn't have to be, like, a cheese sandwich. But it's like, you can only have something in this form. You can do a lot with pizza, and you can do a lot with a sandwich.
If you had to pick between, like, deep dish, Detroit style, New York style, tavern cut all the way.
Tavern cut all the way.
Are you biased? I mean,
yeah. I like New York style. I really like Detroit style.
Yeah,
Detroit style is fun, but that's like stopping my heart. Like, the cheese on the crust is so good. Like, it really is. It's delicious.
It's kind of like I also pizza. Like Pequots, like caramelized crust.
I've never had Pequots.
What?
Yeah, man, you never invite me. You're not even from this place.
Not from this place. No, I've definitely been like falling more in love with. New York style is, I think, still my favorite. Like Jimmy's.
Yeah, I mean, that's so good. That's a great example, though. I mean, there's
there's bad.
I've actually had pizza in New York that I thought was shit.
Oh,
like just bad.
Yeah,
it was not good. Jimmy's though.
There's some pizza places nearby that I was like, I'll just order from them.
Yeah.
And it was like New York style, and I hated it. I'm not gonna mention their names.
Only mention the good stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to the rapid fire section. 5 questions that everyone gets asked.
Do you have a theme song for this part?
No,
I know a guy who can make theme music.
Does he name albums called themes? Or?
No. His name's Mike. He did the theme for the Malting Hour.
No, I'm trying to keep this as low tech as I can.
I like it.
All right, so favorite beverage doesn't have to be alcoholic. Just favorite beverage.
What is my Arnold Palmer?
Arnold Palmer?
Yeah.
Like homemade, or are you talking about
homemade.
Arizona?
No. I don't like that. I thought I did. Like I would like. I really recently got into it more. My mom was big. Like she's drinking Arnold Palmers, and like growing up, my grandma would always make like lemon tea, like a sweet tea with lemon.
Yeah.
Which is basically it's like an Arnold Palmer, which is a bunch of lemon in there. So I'm realizing as I've gotten older, like taking tea and sugar-free lemonade, like I can drink it. What I started doing. I'm a big fan of carbonated water. I'll start with a lemon carbonated water, pour it into the bottom. So there's no flavor, it's just lemon. Mm-hmm. Little lemonade, tea, mix it up, and now I have a carbonated Arnold Palmer. It's the most refreshing after-work drink you can ever have.
Very good.
It's very tasty.
I'm sure it's better than having like sodas and stuff like that.
I used to be I'm not a soda person.
Yeah, I used to be when I was like in high school, but
every now and then I really enjoy a nice Coca-Cola, baby.
It's got to be. I mean, you like it fountain? It
doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. Ooh,
no.
Hot take.
Yeah, for me, it does not matter. It tastes the same. A lot of people. My wife loves fountain.
Oh yeah, I think yeah. I mean, you got to have that dialed in, the fountain. All right, number 2. Mm-hmm. A song everyone should listen to.
Oof, jeez, man, that is I don't know. That's a great.
No, because you could take. I feel like you could take this because you're into a lot of different kinds of music. It's like I don't even know what I would answer for this.
A song everyone should listen. Like,
so let me tell you while you're thinking about this. I am going to be creating a Spotify playlist where I put everyone's answer on it.
I like that. That's a really cool idea.
We'll see how it goes. It's going to be very diverse, I think.
Absolutely. I think I know what it is. I just have to. I'm looking up right now. I'm going to find it. Oh, you know what? I don't know if everybody needs to hear it. Is it just because anybody ever needs to hear it, or just
kind of like your favorite song kind of thing?
My favorite song. This is even more difficult. God. You just changed it. Okay, I've got it right here. Hold on. Ready? It is. I thought you were gonna do like a drum roll or something for me. Sorry. I know this is.
So did it change it because you're like, oh no, I want to keep this underground. I don't want anyone else to know this is my favorite song.
I really. It is. It's a long song. It is In/Flux from DJ Shadow's Preemptive Strike. Came out in '98. However, I would also say that Uncle's Rabbit in Your Headlight with Tom York is also a song everybody should hear.
So which one?
Both have DJ Shadow. Man. I'm going to have to go. I'll go with Influx.
All right.
I'll go with Influx.
Number 3. Favorite concert you've been to?
Daft Punk at Lollapalooza.
Oh, what year was that?
I don't remember. I was on drugs during that. It was the last time I think they played Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. What was it live?
I mean, was it like 5 years ago or 10 years ago?
Oh yeah, it was a while ago.
Okay.
It was honestly one of the, and I'm joking and not joking about the drug thing. It was honestly one of the 2007.
Oh wow!
One of the coolest live shows I've ever seen. They did the whole pyramid thing, and it started with simple lights. By the time it was over, it was full like projected pictures and things, like moving pictures, like movies playing.
Just kind of like behind them.
Yeah, I mean they couldn't. There's a possibility they weren't even there. That's the greatest thing about Daft Punk. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, could have been two guys
just ripping off of MF Doom.
Love it. That's it.
Number 4. Favorite place you've had a drink?
Boy.
And this can be like a certain like brewery you had a drink at, or it could be like a wedding, or I mean whatever, or a vacation you were on.
Favorite place I had a drink? This is gonna sound really lame. When my cousin Kevin and I, we're obviously still close, which by the way, every single themed album, I send him songs from it so I can get his feedback. Not all the songs, but I get his feedback on a lot of those songs before I finish them up.
So he's like the assistant producer.
Yeah, he don't have nothing to do with it though. I wanted to collaborate on Theme 3 for that he and I would like do it together, but he's like on board, and then he's like, I just want to be a listener. Like, fuck you, Kevin. I love a good White Russian. So a White Russian at a wedding, or when Kevin and I get together and watch stupid YouTube videos on a Sunday night sometimes. White Russian.
There you go.
It's adult chocolate milk.
Oh. Double chocolate milk?
No, adult chocolate milk.
I think it's a double chocolate milk. I was like, what is that?
A double chocolate milk, which I'm going to have as soon as I get home before I go to bed.
All right. And last but not least, number 5. What's your guilty pleasure for music?
You know the answer. This is Crash Test Dummies, baby.
I know.
Which Clark and I are getting ready to go see them on their holiday. They're going to play holiday music. I'm so excited. And I will have a copy of their vinyl that they have. Are you an Apple person? You're an Apple person.
Spotify.
But I mean, you don't have
Apple Music. Yeah. I have a Mac.
An Apple Music. They have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, their Christmas album. I think First Noel. It's really creepy. But they do holiday music. So
is it like
it's going to be available on vinyl, and I'm going to get it, and then you can use it for a post if you'd like.
There we go. Is it? I was going to ask if it's like new music, or are they just doing like covers of Christmas? You don't even.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just covers of like Christmas songs. I think they may have had like some Christmas music, but yeah, Crash Test Dummies is one of like the first albums I purchased on my own. I went to Rolling Stone Records, not far from here, over in Harlem. And I purchased it.
I've never been there.
Really?
Yeah.
You should go. Actually, I want to go to see what their vinyl selection's like. I think I bought it on cassette first, and then I had it on CD. And I was the single is the only song a lot of people know, or Peter Pumpkinhead from Dumb and Dumber, which is an Ecstasy cover, the band XTC. That's the only two that people really know. As far as like mainstream goes, So I was the only person that I thought in the world that was ever like Crash Test Dummies, and then I started working with Clark, and that was like one of the first things that we were like, "Holy cow! I can't believe like you love that album as much as I do." And when we go on our Michigan trip, we sing the shit out of that album. Like, that is a part of the drive out there every time, never fails.
That song actually. So we had like a '90s hits or whatever playlist playing today while we were working from home. And that song came on.
Nice.
And it was like, it's just like weird that it came on. I mean, because they could have a million songs on a 90s hits one, but that song came on. And I was like, a hit. Tony's coming over tonight. This is weird.
It's a sign.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
By the way, I'm going to totally overthink all the questions you've asked me here at the end and be like, I should have said this. Why did I go with a fucking
I'll have to start asking. Is that your final answer? I kind of did that with
it remains
DJ Shadow.
Oh yeah, that was a tough one. Influx, I feel that's
you feel confident now?
I'm confident in it. Although the Uncle album Science Fiction with a P, it did just turn 25, so that's hard to believe. I'm getting old. It's a great album. That's an album everybody should listen to. Science Fiction. That's actually a project like that is something I'd want to do, where I can just get together with multiple musicians that I know who do different things, and I kind of like just collaborate with them and then release that as something. So
is that like multiple genres within an album?
Yeah, it leans heavy a little bit on the hip hop side because DJ Shadow was a part of it, but
and Tom York.
Tom York's on one song.
Oh, on one. Okay.
Mike D's on it. Kirk Hammett is on there. Who's the lead singer from Badly Drawn Boy? There's a lot of people that's on there that are on there. Yeah, Cool G Rap's in the first song too.
Interesting.
Yeah, Drums of Death. That's a great album. It's called Science Fiction.
Science Fiction with a P.
UNKLE.
Well,
I mean, I could talk music with you all day.
We'll continue conversation about music for sure. But until we start that, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Other than thanks for having me on, man. This was a lot of fun. I'm honored to be a guest on a podcast, on your podcast specifically.
Tony has recorded, as of the time of this recording, or release, I should say, 119 Malting Hour episodes. I looked. And this is the first time you've been a guest.
Yeah, it's 120 actual episodes, but if you include all the other stuff, we're almost at 200.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. And we've got recording 120 this week with our friend Matthew from Old Irving. I don't know when this is coming out, so
yeah,
look for it. Episode 120 is the 2 days after I recorded this with Dan. No, but I wish you the best of luck, and that was great to be on here. I'd love to come back on in the future, if that's ever a thing.
Theme 5.
Yeah, Theme 5 next year. I'll come back each year. And then everybody listen to the Malting Hour that Dan is occasionally on.
Yeah, everyone check out the Malting Hour. Tony, thanks for joining me.
Thank you, Dan. And one quick thing. Do you remember all 3 names I went by with making music?
So Asa Phelps.
That's now.
Mr. Amigo.
Yes.
And there was another one?
There was one more.
Was it?
Back in 1998.
Oh, yeah.
It's DJ Casio.
DJ Casio.
Just trying.
I forgot.
That was good. I wanted to
I
put
forgot
you
you
in
had
the hot
mentioned
seat
it
for
earlier.
a second.
Well, I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
All right, everybody. Until next time, drink some new beer and listen to some new music. Maybe some Uncle with a K and science fiction with a P. All right. Cheers, everyone.